Hey guys, what's happening? Today I wanted to show you my new side-by-side. I've got a video or two on my YouTube channel of me climbing things with it, and well, one's on YouTube, one's on Facebook. It's a 2016 Teryx. It's the base model, and I've done some modifications to it, some upgrades. I want to share those with you, but before we get started with that, what do I use this thing for? I own 5 acres. I got some land. So there's a lot of things to do around the property. There's hundreds of trees, and so I'm always collecting branches, moving stuff around, and this side-by-side is worth its weight in gold for doing those kinds of tasks around the house. Also, about 1 to 2 times a month, I take it out for recreation to, go to some kind of off-road park, or some of my friends have property south of where I live, and I'll take it down there and go trail riding. So let me show you a couple things that I've done to this. So here you can see I put a roof on it, and this is the Kawasaki factory roof for the Teryx. I went ahead and installed that. It's bolt-on, real easy. Set me back a couple $100. The other thing is, a lot of the places I go, we have to maintain the trails or clear them. So I've got an Echo 20-inch saw there, and I bought one of these coal pin mounts. There you can see it, and it worked out quite nicely. Now I chose to mount it this way. I had to do a little bit of custom work for that mounting bracket, which I'll show you here in a second, but I chose to mount it this way because the whole saw is contained inside of the vehicle, the footprint of the vehicle, and it's really secure because the saw sits on the bed of the side-by-side. You can see there, which limits you to the fact that if the saw is in this holder, you cannot dump the bed, because that's, the Terexes have a dump bed. But I don't use that feature very often, so for me it's not a big deal. And when I need to use the dump bed, I simply take the saw out of the holder. Also, you can see here I've got a piece of wood. The bed of these Kawasaki Terexes are designed to where you can cut pieces of wood and stick them in the slots of these bed and kind of have an adjustable compartment area. So I keep my bar oil and my 2-stroke gas can there for the saw. I've got a cooler here I picked up at Walmart, and I'll show you a close-up of how I got that mounted here in 1 second, but it's got the cooler. Here I added the Jensen radio, and this is another factory or Kawasaki factory part you can order. Pretty expensive, $500-600. I can't remember. It'll be linked here. And underneath the front seat here is a subwoofer, and let's take a look at that, and I'll tell you how I got it installed. Here you can see the driver's side. If you pull the seat up, there's a space right under here, and that's where I actually mounted a 10-inch subwoofer. It's a kicker. I'll link the one I put in there in the box and everything, but I actually had to disassemble a fair amount of this stuff here. I had to pull these covers off and whatnot to get the box in there. It's a JBL amp. It's like 600 watt or something, way overkill. But there you can see it, and I wish I could show you the subwoofer, but I will. I'll have to disassemble a couple things, but all the wiring, the subwoofer is actually underneath that amp there. It was a pretty snug fit, but it actually worked out perfectly. So it's got a 10-inch subwoofer that it does the job. You don't need anything more than that. In here, got some extra switches. Let me show you how those work. Here's the dash of my Teryx, and I installed these 2 switches here. They're aftermarket, and they're virtually, I'm guessing they're the same exact, come from the same factory, but they're the same switch as the light switch. And I'll show you where you can get those. There's a light switch there. I'm going to be putting the LED kit in it eventually. I just haven't done it yet, so I'll end up, there'll be a second switch here that'll say inner, and then all the front lights will be LEDs. But going back to here, there you go. Oops. Shoot. Let me get this camera stabilized somehow. Okay, here you can see the different switches, and here's how I wired it. I'm just going to give you an idea of what it does, not actually how I wired it, but essentially what happens is I put this battery sticker here. If you put it in the down position, it runs the stereo power, comes straight from the battery, meaning you don't have to have the switch on the ignition. Okay, and then the middle position is off, and the top position is it runs off the key. So now if it's in the third position to the top and you turn the key on, you'll see that the radio turns on. And these indicator lights here are ran off the ignition at all times, and you got to wire all that up. And like I said, I'm not going to get into it. You can look in the manual on how to do that. And essentially what that allows me to do is most time I have it in the middle position where it's just completely off. But let's say we're riding around and we're stopping and going, I can just put it in the battery mode, and no matter where the ignition is, it doesn't matter, the radio keeps on going, so you don't have to leave the ignition on. The other thing, the radio kit comes with this Jensen setup. You get these adapter plates, the speakers, which are like 3-inch speakers. They're not really that great, to be honest. I'm going to be adding more, but it also comes with a USB jack and an aux port here that you install. You just cut this stuff out and you stick them in there. So that's how the radio is working. Real quick, going back to this before we get to the subwoofer, you're probably wondering what this switch does. All this is like some cab lighting. So I got some LED light strips from automotive store and installed those, and they run off the switch. It's just enough light to where if you're out in the woods where it's pitch black, this gives you enough light to see what's going on in this area. I'll show you here in a bit what that looks like kind of in the dark. There's also 2 lights under here. There's one down right underneath the panel here, and there's one on the passenger side as well right underneath this panel. And they're just 3M double stick tape or 3M adhesive kind of thing. I just stuck them up in there. I got this set up in the garage now, and to give you an idea on what the lights look like, here we go. So you can see you'd have to see it in person, but it's not really that bright. It just emits enough light that if you drop something down here, or you got a drink or something in your cup holder, or some flashlight or whatever in a storage compartment, this gives me just enough light so I can see in the trails but not be obnoxious about it to where it bothers other people or even the driver for that matter. And here's a look at it from the passenger side, and right there you can see one of the LED strips. It's about 4 inches long. The top one's much longer, probably about a foot. This one here is about a foot. Just gives good lighting so you can see what's going on in the cockpit of this thing. Alright, and of course the subwoofer, I'm sure, out of all the stuff I've done to this is probably the coolest, is getting this damn thing in there. It's one 10-inch sub, and it's, hopefully you can see in the video, it's actually angled back this way, and it would only fit in that orientation, so I can't even show you the actual subwoofer because it points that way towards the engine compartment. But basically, to get this in, what I had to do is pull out this. You have to pull out the chair. You have to pull out all the seat, the backrest, all of that. It comes out with 4 bolts. And then you got to pull out this panel, which goes all the way up towards the pedals. Once you get those out of the way, there's 2 heat shields underneath here that you have to pull out as well. Or maybe it's just one metal heat shield. It's either 1 or 2. And then basically you'll be able to see parts of the engine, and that gave me enough room to tuck this in, and it only went in one way. So if I were to do this again, I would definitely go with a smaller box than the one that I chose. That way you wouldn't have to worry about it. Or my other thought was to make a custom box and put it in one of the storage compartments, which Originally I thought this was going to fit in there. No way. And up here you can see the power wire for the amplifier. I just hooked it up there. It goes up in past like where the normal wiring harness is behind the radio up here. Oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. And behind there is the fuse. And then from there it goes down past that area that I was talking about earlier. The power wire goes, it follows another set of wiring that's behind that panel that I had to take off. And then after that, obviously it comes up through here, and I just tuck the excess wiring down there. And all that wiring follows the same route back up to the head unit. So a couple things to go over about problems that I've had with this vehicle. One big problem is these panels tend to fall off, and I had one fall off and I lost some hardware. If you look on, well, I can't even show you. If you own one, you'll know what I'm saying. There's like a quick disconnect turn key back here. It's a little gizmo and it holds the panels on, and you can turn it, pop the panel off, and you have better access to your storage compartment. The problems I had is those things fell out, and then you lose your side panel. Then I went back, got the side panel, and found that like a rubber grommet was missing. They've got these rubber grommets that go in here, then they slide onto this tab. I actually got it fixed. The biggest problem was the rubber grommets were too dry, so I just used some lubricant, and I'll show you that here in a second, to lube them up, and I haven't had a problem since. Alright, going to the back of the side-by-side, two things I'm going to do back here for sure. There's a Kawasaki factory guard that goes around these lights. I'm going to go ahead and get that ordered and get those installed. I'll do an update video when I do more to this thing. And then they also offer a rear bumper, and I'll be getting that as well. But what I wanted to show you is this. You can get these off of the internet. Oh, there goes a cat. Or some places local have it, but basically it's just a tow strap. It's a shackle and goes into the 2-inch receiver, which one thing I love about this thing is that it came with the 2-inch receiver. So that comes in handy when you're clearing trails, basically to move branches or trees out of the trails. Here's the cooler I'm using in my side-by-side. You can see here I've got a bungee on both sides. There's a second one, and basically you just put the cooler in that spot that it's got there in the middle, and bend these down and hook them, and that's what holds it in. I haven't had any trouble with it. But the way it works is it might not be quite what you think. Instead of having these hooks pulling on the cloth material, I didn't want that because it literally just pulls it down off of this plastic insert. This has got a plastic insert, and then the cloth material, the cooler material, goes up around it. So all I did was I took a small drill bit, I think is what I used, and a torch, and heated up the drill bit till it got good and hot, and I actually just poked holes straight through this material and through the liner. And then if you look inside there, you can see the hooks there and there. I just had to bend them out a little bit, stick them in these holes that I made, and bend them back into position so that they're secure. And now you can pull down on these, and the liner doesn't go anywhere, and the cooler is secured. So that's how I did that. Here's another look at this coal pin chainsaw mount, this bar mount that I bought. And it's actually intended for four-wheelers, so I had to think about it a little bit to figure out how in the heck I was going to get this to mount up to the side-by-side. And a lot of it, I just made this stuff. So here you can see none of these clamps and these plastic spacers, none of that stuff came with this kit. I had to make all those. Well, I bought these from the hardware store, and then I had to make these plastic bushings. And if you have a lathe or something like that, that's kind of what, I don't know what else to tell you unless you have something that fits. But I had to measure this and then make these plastic spacers, and I believe these are 2-inch U-bolts, and they got nylocks on them. And I did 5 of them to hold this thing, which is probably overkill. Could probably get away with 2 or 3, but I just wanted to make, you know, I had the extra holes. The hardware is cheap. I just wanted to make sure it's good and secure. And the way it works is you just screw this off, or loosen this thing up. It flips up, and then there you can see you can pull the chainsaw out if you wanted. Goes back up and clamps cantilevers or whatever. And that's all there is to that. Well, there you have it. That's my 2016 Kawasaki Teryx. I'll keep you up to date when I do more to it. Just to give you a heads up on kind of what I'm probably going to do is there's a brush guard that you can buy that goes right here on the front. I'll be getting one of those, a windshield. Probably there's going to be more lighting, a backup light, and probably a winch. Other than that, it's kind of, you know, I might get some new rims or tires or something like that when when I need to. One of the rims is actually bent already, so so stay tuned for more. I'll keep you up to date as I upgrade this machine. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.